Hey folks, it's that time again. It's time for another Getting to Know Dynatrace session. I am your host today, Jonesy. My name's David Jones. Everyone calls me Jonesy. Feel free. And it's that one of my favorite times every month is getting to know Dynatrace. And so we're going to be talking about all things Dynatrace today. As always, with getting to know Dynatrace, what makes these sessions so special and so fun and so just interesting are your questions. So please feel free during today's session, ask questions. Ask whatever questions you like. I will try my very best between myself and our guest today, Rich Lambert. We're going to try to get those questions answered for you. If you do ask me questions about the fastest land mammal, the answer is, of course, the cheetah. Now, of course, with every getting to know Dynatrace session, we have a couple of introductory segments that we like to go through, and so let's get started. The very first segment is what's new at Dynatrace, and as always, when we talk about what's new at Dynatrace, there's a very easy place to go to on the Dynatrace website, and that's our blog news page. So just go to dynatrace.com/news/blog, and that's going to bring you to what's new. Now, one of the most really interesting things that we have going on is we're doing some changing. We're changing our look and feel and the way we want to talk about things. And the very first piece of this is cloud done right. This is really what Dynatrace is all about, is doing the cloud the right way. And what we've done is we've actually got this week a little teaser video to give you an idea as to what we're talking about when we talk about the cloud done right. And so with that, over to you, John, if you can run that video.
Managing a successful digital transformation in the modern cloud is a symphony of strategy teams and tech. But as challenges mount and massive amounts of data make everything more complex, dev, sec, and ops teams can't keep up with the tempo. And your beautifully orchestrated transformation just sounds like noise. Dynatrace simplifies cloud complexity with deep observability, intelligence and automation, and application security, all in one powerful open platform. We leverage best-in-class observability to gather more and better data from every corner of your environment instantly, then organize it automatically and continuously at scale. But in order to take control of dynamic multi-clouds, teams need more than just data on glass. They need precise answers and intelligent automation. So the game-changing AI at the heart of the platform allows Dynatrace to understand all that data in the context of your business, delivering answers and providing automated solutions before users ever know there's a problem. Because the cloud done right is a huge competitive advantage. Your dev teams can innovate big ideas faster. Ops can leverage predictive analytics to solve problems proactively. And your organization, full of digital transformers, can deliver flawless and secure digital experiences and services every time, together in perfect harmony. This is the cloud done right, brought to you by Dynatrace.
So there we go. That is the cloud done right. Hey, shout out to our media teams for putting that content together. I think it's a great short explainer about what Dynatrace is all about and what we do. So Now, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about with the what's new at Dynatrace. There's a couple of other things. Obviously, if you go to the blog site, let's just slide over there and check some of these articles out. You can see here that Wolfgang Beer, who I am a huge fanboy of Wolfgang. I got to tell you, this guy, I did a couple of sessions on our hot day with how we integrate with ServiceNow, and Wolfgang and Jay were there. These guys really know their stuff. I highly, highly invite you and recommend that if you get an opportunity, read that article from Wolfgang on how Davis and our AI ops can push notifications to your phone, because we've now got an updated app that can go on your phone. So you can go to the App Store, you can download this app. And so when Dynatrace is detecting issues, when there's problems being generated, there's a whole new view that will show up in the app on your mobile device. This is really exciting. I thought it was, I downloaded it, I gave it a try. I thought it was very clever, very well put together. For a lot of people that are on the go, this is a great way of being able to interact with Dynatrace, and from using your mobile device. And then obviously we've got a lot more content when we're talking about things like AppSec. We've got a blog article about how to protect your organization against zero-day vulnerabilities, and just there's just a ton of articles here. So again, I invite you to go to our blog site, give these a read. You'll find them very informative, very insightful. All right, so let's get back to our next segment, which is, did you know? Did you know? Did you know that Dynatrace also provides business analytics? Now, I slipped this one in here because earlier today, we had an internal conversation with all of our SEs. And one of the things that we talked about today was business analytics. And I thought, hey, that's actually a great topic, because not a lot of people know that Dynatrace, in fact, actually does business analytics. And it was really interesting in the conversation. If you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, there was a lot of conversations about that, because what Dynatrace is really doing is we're not just throwing up data onto glass. It's not just throwing up data onto dashboards. With this business analytics, you can use it to get precise answers. And somebody actually explained it. It's almost like applying sabermetrics to your IT organization. And it allows you to do way more with less. And so it was, I just thought, a fabulous conversation that we had today. And I wanted to point it out today because our ability to do these business analytics are one of the ways that we can really uniquely leverage all of the data that Dynatrace is, ingesting, and provide you with a lot more value out of, just simply monitoring things. So that is something I wanted to call out today, is that Dynatrace does do business analytics. Read up more on dynatrace.com about what we do with our business analytics. And we also have parts of our organization that are totally focused on delivering business value. We've got our insights team, our business insights team. These are consultants, professionals that do business analysis day in, day out. That's all they do. And then we've got all sorts of new capabilities and functionalities that are going to be coming out this fall around using business analytics in a much more intelligent and really interesting fashion. But again, I'm giving you a little teaser about some of this stuff coming out in the fall. Now, there's another thing that I wanted to do today with our Did You Know? And I wanted to say, did you know it's back to school season? Now, my kids are a little bit older. They're getting their way out of university right now. But for a lot of you, your kids are back into school, right? And, it's since it's back to school season, we are actually starting up a new bi-weekly session that's called Live from the Principal's Office. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. Okay, this is our principal sales engineers. So here at Dynatrace, we have part of our team are what we call principal sales engineers. And these are people that know Dynatrace inside and out, front, back, up, down. They just know everything there is to know about Dynatrace. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start sessions where this team, the principal team, is going to walk through actual sort of scenarios of how you deploy Dynatrace. And so the next one is going to be on August 23rd at 2 p.m. So again, go to our, the Dynatrace. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. You'll see us advertising and promoting this principals office session all over the place. Sign up and attend it. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really cool and a lot of great conversation. So let's get back to getting to know Dynatrace. Now it's time for the best part of getting to know Dynatrace, and it's demo time. So this week we have for our guest demo speaker, we have Rich Lambert. Hey, Rich, how you doing?
Hey, good, Jonesy. What do you know, buddy?
Hey, listen, we've been trying to get Rich on to do one of these sessions literally weeks, and it's just been scheduling issues here and there. But Rich, I'm very happy to have you on this week. I'm looking forward to your demo, and folks, as we're going through this, I can see the comments starting to filter in. It looks like we've got close to 100 people watching us on LinkedIn. If you got questions, now's the time. So feel free, fire in those questions into the chat window. We'll do our very best to get to them. And I see that people are coming in from all over the place. I can see that we've got, somebody in from Denver. Hey, there's an old buddy of mine, Tom Litke. Shout out to Tom Litke. How you doing, brother? Great to see you joining. And folks, like I said, ask those questions and we'll do our best to get them answered. And with that, Rich, it's actually over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and then let's do a demo.
Yeah, let's do a demo, man. This is fun. My name is Rich Lambert. I'm from, I live in Houston, Texas now, which is where I work. I'm originally from Little Rock, Arkansas. I got to Texas as fast as I could. That's a little Texas, might be a little bit of that on this call. So shout out to my Arkansas friends. Justin Swan out there just signed a big deal out there for us. So I'm an SE, systems engineer with Dynatrace, working in the Houston area with Houston clients, and I am completely thrilled to be here. I will say, Jonesy, that next week, Lord willing, I will not be attending your call from my son's principal's office, where we have already had a visit this year. So, Lord willing, we'll do our best.
Right on. Well, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that you can stay out of that principal's office. But like I said, make sure that you try to get to the other principal's office. So, hey, listen, absolutely. I can see, we've got lots of, people that are coming in. I see we got someone from Portugal. We got Brazil. We got someone from New Jersey. We've got some questions coming in. Somebody's asking a question around, how do we, generate reports around some of this business analytics data that we can ingest? You know what? Let's just take a quick stab at answering that question before we even get into the demo. So, this is actually a really great question. Dynatrace does, a really good job of ingesting data, but the question is then what can we do to actually take this data and present it in a way that can be provided to users, perhaps without having to have them with their own Dynatrace login. So there's actually features in our dashboarding that allows you the features in this sharing facility or capability for our dashboards allow you to actually create visualizations, dashboards, which could be in the form, for example, if you want to call it a report, and you can use this setting to actually share it with people outside of your organization. It can generate a publicly generated URL that you just click on that URL and you'll get that page regardless as to whether or not you have access to Dynatrace or not. That's a super simple way of being able to share this data. But there's also other ways of doing this. For example, if you go on to GitHub and do a search for Dynatrace and say like, I'm trying to think, Power BI, for example, there are examples on GitHub where people have actually created Power BI reports that are ingesting metrics and data from Dynatrace using our API. And so there's instructions on how to use those. There's a number of different ways that you can do this. And without giving away too much, come this fall, there's going to be some really interesting ways of being able to share Dynatrace data we've got some really interesting notebooking functionality that I think I might be giving away a little bit too much by even talking about that. So let's just leave that as a teaser. Let's leave that as a teaser and just keep tabs on what we're doing come this fall. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised. All right. With that, you know what, Rich, let's get into the demo.
I'm doing it. Find my screen, window. There we go.
While you're doing that, somebody, Lakshmi just asked a question about what is observability. Okay, so you know what? As you're teeing up the demo, let's answer that. Okay, observability is a practice that has grown out of the Google SRE space. SRE standing for Site Reliability Engineering. And so observability is based around three core principles. For me to be able to understand what's going on within my application, I need to be able to see traces or transactions. I need to be able to see your metrics. That could be anything from your JVM metrics to your host metrics, whatever sort of metric you're looking at, and logs. So when your application is writing out logs, it's basically writing out information that's being stored in a file that we can access. So the traces, the metrics, the logs, those are the three core pieces of observability. What we've realized here at Dynatrace is that over the years, we realized that, observability is really interesting. We love observability. I even describe Dynatrace as almost an observability in the box platform. But what we realized is that those three core pillars by themselves are not enough for organizations to really understand what's going on with their applications. And so what we've done is we've layered onto the traces, the metrics, and the logs, we've layered on information about your topology, information about your end user behavior, information about how the code is executing. We've added in metadata. We've added in network data, because we know that those three core pillars, while they provide us a lot of valuable information, there's more that organizations really need if they want to, use that observability information to drive automation, for example. So thank you very much for that question, Lakshmi. Okay, Rich, demo time. There we go.
Yeah. Hey, so I've got a Smartscape up. Can you see that, Jonesy?
Yep, we can.
Okay, fantastic. So this leads right into your point, because at Dynatrace, we try to do things a little bit different, and it's exactly as you're describing, because context in today's world is everything. So I think about an example where I hear a news story. Sometimes we're not going to get into any, but I hear a news story and maybe the headline is a little inflammatory. So, and I don't like it, and it upsets me or something. But then I dig down a little bit deeper into it, and I try to get the complete picture. And when I do, I understand that maybe that headline was a little misleading. So you just mentioned that, or it was in the video also, that teams need more than data on glass. And data on glass is great. I'm going to hop over next. I'm going to come back to Smartscapes. It's just a cool view I like to start with. So we have dashboards that are really just data on glass. They tell you about a specific moment in time. There's some things that they can tell you, and that's fantastic. But we need more context in today's world. And as applications and infrastructure get more, if you really need a tool like Dynatrace to stay up with things and to stay on top of those environments, because otherwise you're going to lose the forest for the trees. So again, this is a dashboard. We find there are a number of different dashboards that are available in Dynatrace. This is an infrastructure specific dashboard. Zoom in a little bit, where we can look at applications, see what the top applications are, where they're coming from in the world. I know there's a lot of international users here. So we can see all those things, our services, and see what's going on with each of our services, or at least where they are at that static moment. Get a little bit of history here, just maybe in some line charts, and then also look at what's in our infrastructure. So again, dashboards are great. I'm a traditional monitoring guy. I come from a monitoring background. If for those of you, raise your hand out there if you're in a monitoring space right now, because I love you. And nobody typically does, because people are mad at you when they get alerts, and they're mad at you when they don't. I get that. At Dynatrace, we get that. So we want to provide you with the additional context that will really help you understand what's going on in your environment. Does that make sense to everybody? I guess they're not answering live, are they?
No.
That's awesome.
That's great, Rich. Absolutely, brother. Just keep going, brother.
Okay, good deal. So where we like to focus in Dynatrace is with our AI engine, Davis. We funnel all the data that we collect, whether it's metric data, it's topology data, it's trace data, distributed trace data. We pull all that information in. It's collected via our one agent. We'll talk about that in just a short second. That information goes into our AI engine, Davis, and Davis can help us understand exactly when there is a problem. Davis will detect the anomaly that'll raise a problem, and then Davis will start to analyze all the topology that's involved with it, whatever the application or the service or the slowdown, whatever it is. Today's session, we're going to look at a response time slowdown on a web app, and can identify exactly where that problem is. So the way that those are raised in Dynatrace is with a problem card. And this is a specific problem that I uniquely picked out. Happened last night. It was open for 28 minutes at 1 o'clock in the morning. It affected real users, which tells us that it's actual people using the application and not necessarily, or not just synthetics. We do synthetics, and we use synthetics in our analysis. And we see that there's 1 affected application, 10 affected services, 2 affected pieces of infrastructure, and 5 affected SLOs. So I know the times that I've worked, I've been a NOC manager in the past. I've managed monitoring teams in the past with traditional monitoring tools. And I just can't count the number of times that a senior manager has called me and said, Rich, how many people is this impacting? I hadn't been able to answer. 9 times out of 10, it's just been a wag, unless it's 1 or 2 people that I know are being impacted by it. So it's always been estimates. And the great thing about Dynatrace, one of the great things about Dynatrace is, since we understand the topology and we understand the slowdowns and who's using what applications, we can see exactly who's impacted. And in this case, when we drill down into the business impact analysis, we see 828 out of almost 19,000 users were affected. And there are 3.11 million affected service calls. And Davis analyzed dependencies across almost 18,000 monitored entities. Now, a human being is not going to be able to do that, right? There's nothing that, other than advanced automation, that can tell us these things exactly. And so Dynatrace really gives us that power. It has the power to give us that information. So if we wanted to drill down now, we'll talk a little bit more about the users in a second. When we go through the affected applications and the user sessions, we can see all those because we trace every single transaction that goes through your application stack. Every single one. We don't sample. We do all of them. When you sample, you miss things. There's going to be some impactful transactions that aren't being picked up because maybe we're only getting 1 in 10. We're only pulling 1 in 10. Dynatrace, no, we get all of them. We see that there's 1 impacted application. It's an easy trouble. That's a web application that handles, what would you say, travel website. We can see that the user affected user actions, rather, the number of user actions that were impacted, which browsers, where in the world, and what operating systems those were impacted by the problem. Now, going further, we can take a look at the root cause for the issue. Davis has already determined. Check destination is the service that's being impacted. We see that there was a deployment event. We see that there were response time degradation events. And we also see that there are metric anomalies detected. And then we have a visual resolution path. Now, I want to dive into this visual resolution path now. Let that load. Because what the visual resolution path does is it allows you to play the incident, whatever the slowdown was, you to play it from start to finish. And I want to show you why that's important here. So what I can do is I can go back to the beginning of the issue over here on the problem evolution, scroll it back. Everything's good here. You can see all the different pieces that were impacted. This is all dynamic. Nobody had to put this in. The only thing it's running from is from one agents that are installed. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. So we see all the different pieces that are impacted. As we step through the issue, okay, boom. Looking closer here, At 12:56, looks like we've got something starting to go on. We see the affected impacts here. We have 10 events that are going on in 7 components. Wow. Okay. Let's take another step. Now, as we step through this over time, we can see that downstream pieces of infrastructure or code modules or whatever are impacted by this. And that's what we start to see here. Again, another 47 ongoing events and 13 components. And now it's, oops, get that refocused here. Go back to here. So, okay, doesn't want to play ball with me today. That's fine. Log demos. So as we progress through this, we see the number of ongoing events and the number of components that are impacted. Now, the reason I show this, okay, you say, Rich, that's great. I don't really care about that. I just want to know what's going to solve the problem. Tell me where the problem is. And we do that. But the reason to point this out is that with the number of tools that Dynatrace can replace in a monitoring environment, or looking at numerous tools that are in your environment, network tools, if you have those looking at, or applications that the different teams are using, you can see that each of those are creating issues. And those are raising tickets, and those are creating events. And at a certain point in time, the number of events that are coming in, the number of alerts, the number of alarms, the number of, I'm old, so I say pager pings, the number of phone calls that you're getting, all those things just start to tick up. And at some point or another, it just becomes noise. You want to jump in, Josie?
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job of describing what, a lot of people would call like an alert storm, right?
Yeah,
because
alert storm. That's exactly it.
All of these different tools are out there. You're monitoring at your OS. You're monitoring at your process level. You're monitoring your apps. You're monitoring your web servers. You're monitoring externally. You're monitoring your logs. And so now you've got, like literally probably over a dozen disparate tools that have all been set off because of this problem. And they're all sending, notes or problems, alerts into you're using like an ITSM tool, right? Like you might be using something like ServiceNow, for example. And next thing you know, you've got 60 alerts that have all showed up. And I particularly like this view because in most organizations, when there's a problem, what happens? You get this scenario where everybody and their brother all of a sudden get onto what they call a war room call, right? And so you got your database people, you got your network people, you got your app people, you got the business people, you got everybody, okay, on this call. And everyone's got their own set of tools, and everyone's tools are green. They're good. There's no problem, but there is a problem, right? There's a problem. And so everyone's pointing fingers at each other. And with this, Dynatrace, one of the guys on my team, Jason Bortolotti, he describes this particular view as Dynatrace automatically generates a whiteboard for you. And that's basically what we're looking at, is an automatically generated whiteboard of the problem. And it's not like the old days where, if there's a problem, you do one of a couple things. You first off have to verify, is it a legit problem, right? So now you go from your tier 1 support to your tier 2. Tier 2 goes, yeah, that's a problem. And then they go to tier 3, and tier 3 is somebody's going to go start looking where the problem is. And then eventually it's going to make its way out to the developers. And developers are going to start sifting through log files, looking for the proverbial, needle in a haystack. And, all the while, the problem's still going on, and now you've got all this human capital invested in trying to figure out the problem. Or what you do is you try to recreate the scenario, recreate the problem in our UAT or our dev or test environments. Well, problem there is the test environments rarely ever actually match what your production environment is. So with this, that's great. What you showed us is awesome, Rich. You just go back in time and press play and look at the historical sort of, how did this problem evolve?
Exactly. And again, the point is huge. I've lived this in my real life, not just my work life. It's where people are pointing at each other. Of course, at the end of the day, tongue in cheek, it's always the network's fault, right? Network is where everybody seems to point fingers, and Sorry, network guys. You just get to take it on the chin.
It's funny you mentioned that, Rich, because there's a lot of network folks that are really jumping on to the Dynatrace bandwagon because it Dynatrace very quickly will say, hey, this is a network problem, or hey, this is an application problem. So network people love this because it validates that, hey, it's not the network people. So
leave my network alone.
Yeah. We got a question here. So actually a couple of questions coming in here. So there was one question, which is, so we can put a server on, under observability using Dynatrace. What are the important metrics to consider while monitoring? Now that's a great question, because you can, use Dynatrace actually has a metrics library. So depending upon what you're monitoring, this library is going to show you all of the different metrics that are available to you. And you can always ingest other metrics if you need to. But what's really great about Dynatrace is that problem card that Rich was showing us before, it was automatically generated, right? There was no requirement for you to go and figure out what's your most important KPI. What's your most important metric that you should be looking at here? You don't have to do that with Dynatrace when it comes to this problem detection. What's going to happen is Dynatrace is going to automatically go out, discover all the technology that's out there, and then it's going to start ingesting metrics for those technologies, and it's going to start baselining them. So you don't have to worry about what those metrics are out of the box. So with that, you just basically, you deploy the Dynatrace One agent, start collecting data, and let that Davis AI figure things out. Now, if you want to tune things, if there's specific metrics that you're really interested in, like let's just say for argument's sake that you're one of the, you're part of the middleware team, right? And the middleware team is really they're interested in their queues, and what you want to do is maybe you want to see if I've got queued messages building up and there's a metric for that. Sure, then absolutely import that metric into Dynatrace. You could set a custom threshold around that, so it would trigger a problem card if need be. In many of the cases, most of the stuff that you need out of the box for just monitoring like a site server, for example, it's just going to happen automatically for you. You're not going to have to worry about that kind of thing. Now, and like I said, if you are, if your role, your persona has you working on specific technologies, then you can select those technologies as things that can trigger alarms, trigger alerts, trigger behaviors inside of Dynatrace. Sorry, I'm Rich. We were just answering a question there. How about you just keep going? How about keep going?
That's great. That's great. I would also want to point out that on the monitoring side, back to my monitoring brothers, that with the dynamic environments now, the way that the environments change, I mean, they always have changed. You're constantly chasing your tail. So you add a server. Okay, well, now you've got to go add metrics. Does that change the alert thresholds? That's possible. So it's just a never-ending task. And with Dynatrace, holy cow, it's so much of the automation that we have to keep up with these dynamic environments, and it's automated. So you don't have to do all that stuff anymore. It's amazing. It's an amazing tool. It's amazing all the things that you don't have to do. But yeah, Jonesy, I do want to dive a little bit about what we can do. We saw the visual resolution path. Let's look at cause issue. So we see the check destination is a service that was impacted. That's a service within the Easy Travel application. We see that there was a deployment event. That's interesting. We're going to come back to that. Let's take a look at, and we can see that there were response time events and some metric anomalies. Wow, look at that. Server response time, additional 419 milliseconds. Doesn't sound like a long time, but if it's outside of the thresholds, if it's outside of the baselines that are determined, that could be a big deal.
It's actually funny you mentioned that, Rich, because we talked about this last time, and there can be scenarios where Dynatrace detects a problem, and it might say that, hey, your baseline is 50 milliseconds slower than what it normally is, and you might say to yourself, 50 milliseconds, I don't care about 50 milliseconds, when in fact you actually do care about 50 milliseconds if you're monitoring thousands of transactions and requests that are coming through a system. Those tiny little moments of time that you might say, oh, 50 milliseconds doesn't make a difference. But all of a sudden, through the sheer laws of volume, if you hit something, with thousands and thousands and thousands of requests, that 50 milliseconds can break things really easily. So, even the small values there can be hugely impactful on the compute resources that we're monitoring. All right, keep going. Sorry, Rich.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. So let's say that this problem card, that's something that comes up in your network operations center, your incident response team, and they see this. So originally, like Jonesy said, well, what's their next step? Well, they're probably spinning up a conference bridge in a traditional monitoring environment, spinning up a conference bridge. They're calling everybody. They're sending out Everbridge alerts or whatever notification service you use. And everybody gets on this bridge and the whole troubleshooting war room thing begins. Okay, take a second. Hold on. Dynatrace, you don't have to do that. So when we see this deployment event that Davis has identified as part of the root cause of the issue, well, now we can see exactly what happened and who needs to be contacted. If we look into the details of this, scroll a little bit, we see the deployment that was made. The source is ServiceNow. This is a ServiceNow integration that we have. And I want to talk about integrations as soon as I get to the point that now the NOC knows that Chuck Ryan is the guy that pushed it or is the owner of the change. So that's who the NOC can call or your service center can call. So to quickly go back on the ServiceNow, we have a number of integrations in Dynatrace, over 600 as we speak. Those are constantly being developed, and it's an exciting thing. The more information that we can draw into Dynatrace, either through extensions or log data or any other kind of data that we can pull in, what does that do? That adds context. And again, why is context important? Because without context, you're kind of out there with data on glass again. So the context is added helps Davis identify exactly where and what's going on in your environment. So
Rich, I was just going to say.
You wanted it, right?
Yeah. No, this is a great example because this is showing Dynatrace working in combination with an ITSM tool like ServiceNow. And here, Dynatrace is ingesting information from ServiceNow about a deployment event. So Davis is aware that something has occurred that could have potentially been part of the issue that we were looking at. In this scenario, it's a two-way relationship because Dynatrace is also feeding ServiceNow in this example information about the CIs, right? We use that topology in that Smartscape to push fresh CIs into ServiceNow. So the guys who are managing ServiceNow, they're always going to have, fresh understanding as to what is in their inventory, right? And so this two-way relationship between us and ServiceNow, this is a great example, can be used to drive things like automation. So here is an issue where Dynatrace detects that this service is having a problem. It sees that this service was related to a deployment event. That triggers some automation routine on the ServiceNow side that runs an Ansible script that rolls back that change, and then Dynatrace sees that that's fixed the problem and closes the problem out. That's automation, right? That is all about automation. And so that is a great example. Hey, Rich, let's take a pause for a second because the questions are starting to queue up, okay?
Oh, they sure are.
Yeah, so we've got, hold on a second here. Let me just sort of scroll through this. Let me start with this question from, I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name. Oh, wait, what we got here? They popped it up. Yeah, so we can avoid an upcoming problem, avoid an upcoming problem by monitoring. Yes. So there's a number of different ways that you can do this. What you can do is, for example, you could use synthetic monitoring as an example. Proactively test things. Test your pages. Test your APIs. Ping your sites that you're trying to connect to that are, your most important sites or endpoints that you would connect to. So you can use synthetics to proactively test things. And if it fails, that synthetic test fails, you can then have it raise an alert inside of Dynatrace so that you would know that, hey, there's a problem here. This is a very common thing for organizations to do with Dynatrace. As a matter of fact, we just recently updated some functionality so that you can call the synthetics in an on-demand fashion as part of your CI/CD pipeline. So as you're pushing a build from stage 1 to stage 2, you can call on Dynatrace to synthetically test that build and test an endpoint, test a page, test an API, whatever it might be. And if it passes, if it's a good test, you get a good result, go on to the next stage. If it fails, stop it. Don't let it progress. Don't let it cause a problem in your pipeline. So that's just one example of how you can do that with Dynatrace. Now, there's another question here. So this one's all right. I got to geek out for a moment because I saw this question come in, and I got to just go, all right, this is interesting. So the question is, how do I avoid a shifting baseline with Davis? All right. Now, Davis, the baselines will build out automatically. But in this scenario that the person is describing, what's happening is that the thresholds that are happening at night are different than the performance and thresholds that we see during the day. And so Davis, in this case, is looking at things holistically and trying to figure out what's a happy average there. So in a scenario like this, what you've just described, the way that I would approach it, what I would do is I would go in and start thinking about modifying my thresholds on a automated basis. This is not well known, and that's why we have getting to know Dynatrace sessions, is that Dynatrace's configuration can all be controlled through our APIs. We have a configuration API. And as part of those configuration APIs, what you can do is you can set thresholds for, let's just say for argument's sake, it's a specific service that I'm looking at web requests or requests on a specific service. And I want the thresholds to be set to different values during the day than, say, during the evening. Absolutely, you could do that. You could run a very simple little cron script that actually changes automatically what those thresholds are depending upon the time of day. And that's how I would approach that problem. So great question. That one, you got to put your thinking cap on as how you do that. One of the things you'll see coming down the pipe is that we're looking at improving Davis and the automatic baselining. So we're looking at things like, providing more improved seasonality, understanding if you're a bank, what happens on the 15th and the 30th of every month, right? Everybody logs into the bank because they want to check to make sure that they got paid, right? That's payday. So everyone logs in. All of a sudden, you see the bank see this huge spike in traffic, right? That's seasonality. What happens on the third Friday of November? Is it? Yes, the third Friday of November. Well, that's Black Friday, right? So, obviously, if you're a retailer, that all of a sudden, all bets are off. The thresholds are going to change because you got this massive influx of traffic that happens same time every year. That's seasonality. So that's one of the things that we're looking to, improve on in Davis is, better understanding of seasonal sort of events. All right, what do we got? Other questions? How do we get alerts in case of a problem? Will it show any proposed solution on where to fix the problem besides showing the impacted user and application? Rich has got this teed up.
Yes.
So first off, before Rich gets into this,
who asked that? Because I feel like I need to send him a check.
Yeah,
right. You're teeing it up for us.
That was Subu Panati. Thank you very much for that question. All right, so let me preface this, and then Rich is going to show us an example. So when Dynatrace detects a problem like this, you can use Dynatrace to do a number of different things. You could have it send out an email to an email alias group, individual. You could have it write a message into a Slack channel. You could have it, send an ITSM ticket into ServiceNow. So Dynatrace is going to send out an alert that this problem exists. And then within that alert, there will be information about what's happening, metadata to describe it. It may be even pulling over the tags to describe what team is responsible for this, whatever it might be. And then it's going to post a link back to this problem card. And from this problem card, okay, Rich, show us how you could use this to actually find what needs to be fixed.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about what the NOC is going to see. The NOC is going to call our old buddy Chuck Ryan. Guys probably haven't slept in years. So we're going to analyze the response time. So Chuck is going to log in. He's going to get the link from the operations center, and he's going to open up the problem ticket and start figuring out what exactly is going on. Dynatrace tells us already that it's not a problem with the services or the queues or with the database. It's all in service execution. So we can see here, if you look at the blue, that's how long the request normally takes. And we look at the red, and that's how long it actually did take. We can see that also here. And from also within Dynatrace, we can quickly go to method hotspots. There's a full stack call hierarchy of the operation that was offended on it. We can see the stack aspect of it now. It's easier for me anyway to go into the hotspots, and with hotspots we can see the things that contributed to the issue. And within this location parser, so this is class and method detail, and it goes right in to show that the contribution to the issue was 97.8, 98% basically. We can go into the methods that are also called, and we can get additional information about what's going on with the issue. So it's really easy for Chuck, the developer, to look in and see, okay, well, the issue is with the location parser calculate section method, and he knows right away what his deployment did and potentially had an impact with his application. Go ahead, David.
No, I was just going to say, Rich, this is perfect. And if you scroll up just a bit, if you go on to the ellipse, you just scroll up a bit, right from where you are. Scroll down, I should say. Sorry, I apologize. Scroll down. Yep, down. Yeah. So right there on the ellipsis, over on the right-hand side of those methods, what you can do is you can click on that, and you can see here that you can get an idea as to, hey, what's calling this? So now I understand the context that this is the problem, and this is what's calling it. But also what we can do is you could use this to immediately download the source code. So if you're a developer, you can just go in there, click on download the source code, and it's going to actually pull out, that code and allow you to open it up into your IDE. So the idea is that if you're looking for how does Dynatrace help someone to fix it, within 3 clicks, Dynatrace showed us that, hey, the problem was with our code, and then it showed us the specific method that was causing this. It showed us the related methods, and it provided me a real quick access so I could just download this code into my IDE. Doesn't get any quicker than that. So that's a great example. Great example. So we got some more. Go ahead, Rich.
Oh, good. No, good. Well, I was just saying, if you think about the transformational aspect of this from traditional monitoring, where at the very beginning of all this, when the call came out and the latency or the slowdown happened in the first place, you've got the NOC spinning up a war room, you've got senior management, you've got all sorts of engineers, everybody's on a call, the number of man hours that takes, and just how amazing it is with Dynatrace. This technology is just really phenomenal and getting right to the root of the issue. Go ahead, David.
Well, we got a question here from Andre. So, can I monitor the status of an API with Dynatrace without making a request? So, I suggested that one of the things that you could do to monitor an API was you could do it synthetically. Well, what if I don't want to create a synthetic test? I just want to be able to see the requests to a specific API. Absolutely. So if you go into services as an example, and Rich, maybe you can just drop us into the services view.
Sure.
The service view inside of Dynatrace, it effectively shows us a catalog of all of the different services that Dynatrace has automatically detected. Now, these services, they can be front-end services. They could be, I'm making a web request and I'm getting a web page, right? That's a service. But the service can also be, and in many cases, there are going to be APIs. These are API endpoints where I am making a request into, for example, that check destination service. That is essentially a service. It has an API endpoint that something upstream is calling. So what you can do is you can drill into that service and you can see the details of every transaction that's being made into that service. So go ahead and click into one of these here. This is perfect. All right, so now we're looking at this particular service, and you see here requests, right? Those are the requests that are going into effectively this API. So this service is in fact an API. And if we go in and look at and view the requests themselves, you can actually see now some details about these requests if we scroll down, right? So we can see some details about these requests, and you see those little gray things. That's actually us going in and creating what we call request attributes, where we're pulling out details, specific information about that request. So maybe what I want to do is I want to look at my API, but I only want to look at those API calls that are executing for looking for a specific product or doing a specific function. So now I could filter on that. And once I've done that, what I can then do is I could go into what we call our pure paths. A pure path is 100% Dynatrace jargon. Okay. It is effectively our way of being able to collect traces and spans and group them together in a logical fashion. So here, if we go in and look at what's now, we've described it, it's actually in the product, it's called distributed traces. So go ahead and click on distributed traces there.
Oh, was already there?
You're already there. I apologize. Yeah, just go ahead and click on that.
They tricked me.
So here is a collection of those traces, right? And we can go in and actually look at the individual requests. So if you are looking to monitor the status of an API, you're going to be using Dynatrace in this fashion. The API would be described as a service, and then Dynatrace is just going to automatically monitor it, baseline the behavior that we see. It's looking for response time, like performance bottlenecks. It's looking for exceptions. It's looking for errors. And at any point in time, you could go in and actually look at the individual requests that are being made. And you can see things like the response codes that are happening. You can see things and drill into the details around here about what's calling this. What is it then, in fact, in turn calling? All right, so hopefully we answered that question. Looks like John, yeah, that's the question there from John Kennedy. Okay, great question, John. So, how well does Dynatrace pull in SQL Server metrics and match them against issues that are occurring, assuming the SQL is involved? So let's go look at the database view for a second. There we go. So Rich, you just want to sort of walk us through and explain a little bit about what we're seeing on the screen with the database view?
Sure. Since, again, remember that Dynatrace is monitoring every transaction, we can tell which of those are coming back as database calls. We pull in what the vendor is and what the specific databases are. We can funnel filter those down on different databases, and we can dive in even to the database itself to get metrics on the database. So some of these are done with extensions, but this one will tell us all the SQL transactions, the rate of speed. We can go in and with the database statements, see what modifications, SQL queries, full detail on what's going on in the databases. Right out of the box with Dynatrace, maybe with an extension installed. Those are simple and easy.
So one of the things that will happen here is, Dynatrace is doing some introspection at the application tier. It's looking at the JDBC calls. It's looking at the ADO.NET connections that are being made. And it's looking then to see if there are, performance issues that are being introduced by a SQL statement, as an example. So if there is an issue with performance and it's the database, it will more often than not be able to identify it down to a specific request. But one of the more interesting things that Dynatrace can then do for a developer is, hey, I'm a database person. I've got all my database tools, right? I got database tools everywhere. But what I want to be able to do is I need to understand the context of who's calling this specific statement. So, Rich, why don't you go back over to the ellipsis on that and do a backtrace?
Analyze the backtrace.
You just, yep, right there. So this is actually showing us now a different view where we're actually starting at the database and we're looking up our application, into our application, and we're seeing in this particular case what upstream services are calling the database for that specific request type. That is super powerful. So now as a database developer or a database administrator, I can go in there and say, okay, I see that this call is being made from this application, and it can be even more specific. Go ahead and click on the web application that you have exposed there, right there. So not only does it tell us that, hey, this database request is coming from this service, which is coming from this application, it's now showing us what the user is in fact actually doing on the page that generates, that call being made back to the database. This is ridiculously powerful stuff, right? This allows people to really hone in on understanding what is the user doing and what's the impact that it's having on the way the application is performing. All right, what do we got?
Absolutely. So I did want to just real quickly, I don't know how much time we have.
We got like 2 minutes. What do you want to show us in 2 minutes?
What I want to show you in 2 minutes is we talked about the perspective from the NOC or the service center. We talked about the perspective from the developer. Well, Jonesy, I don't know about you, but have you ever taken your car or your truck to the shop and it didn't make the noise that you wanted it to make because that's what they do, right?
I'm a car guy, so yeah, that happens.
You're
all
a
the
car
time.
guy? Well, I'm in Texas, so I'm not. But with Dynatrace, we have the ability, even since we watch each and every single one of those transactions, we can go in and look at the actual user session. Now, a business person might want to use this, or somebody that's trying to it's a word I'm looking for, trying to repeat or make this happen again. We have the ability to go in, and this isn't live recorded, right? This is metadata that we've collected. So don't, some people have concerns about that from a security spooky big brother kind of perspective. But we have the ability to trace these back and see where issues occurred or what users were doing at the time that the issue occurred. And that's really cool to me because I know the number of times I've taken my car into my truck into the shop and it doesn't make that noise.
Yeah. You know what? I love that you brought this up, Rich. And the reason being is that this is sort of like the IT help desk, they live this day in, day out. So you've got a help desk, you got a large organization that's filled with business people, and they've got apps and they're doing business things in their apps. And when something goes wrong with the technology, the business person, they don't know technology. They just know that they're supposed to do something. It's supposed to work. And so what happens is they create a ticket in their help desk, and you start this back and forth. Help desk. So what can I help you with? Well, the app's not working. Oh, can you describe for me why the app's not working? Well, I'm clicking a button and it's just not working. And it's like, wow, that's really helpful, right? And you get this like anecdotal back and forth. But with this, it cuts through that entire conversation like a laser. And it's basically the help desk can go in, look at this user session, and they can immediately see where the problem is, where that business user wasn't able to execute some function. It's a great example. Thanks very much, Rich, for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. Hey, listen, folks.
Absolutely.
Rich, you know what? We're at the top of the hour now. We've run out of time.
We could keep going, couldn't we? We could go for hours.
We absolutely can. But Rich, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you having you on, getting to know Dynatrace. And folks, I invite you back to our next session of Getting to Know Dynatrace. If this is your first exposure to Dynatrace, please feel free to give us a try. Go to dynatrace.com, click on the free trial. It's not going to do anything goofy like ask you for a credit card or something goofy like that. You can just sign up for a free trial. It will give you the complete full version of Dynatrace. You can try it out for a couple of weeks and just experience it yourself. You'll see everything that we're talking about today. And also, remember, come back on the 23rd at 2 p.m. and attend the principal's office. And with that, folks, we're going to sign off for this week's Getting to Know Dynatrace. Thank you very much for attending. I hope you've had fun. These sessions are, they're just made better by you folks attending and asking questions. So please feel free to do that again in the future. And with that, we're going to sign off and say, ciao to next time. So long, folks. Take care.